Right. Let me just start my screen share for you. So first of all, what we'll do is in this context, I'm going to look at, I'm just starting my slideshow. And we'll first look at the structure of the GMAT in terms of what are the key sections, and then we'll talk about the process of preparation for each one of them, and then also look at the scoring pattern, because the GMAT scoring pattern is something that a lot of you don't understand. A lot of people don't understand very well, and unless you understand the GMAT scoring pattern, you will not be able to actually understand the exam and how to crack this exam. So you're with me, Arun Sharma, and you're with Mindworks when we are doing this session for all of you. And scores upward of 750, 760, 780. How do you get there? What's the structure, etc. We'll just come to that. So the GMAT exam is essentially a 4-section exam. Just one second, just need one more thing before I start off. It's essentially a 4-section exam. And out of these 4 sections, 2 sections are basically what define your GMAT score. 2 sections are what defines your GMAT score, and the other 2 sections are sections where you get an individual sectional score, but they don't affect your GMAT score overall. So the 4 sections of the GMAT exam essentially are what you can see here is analytical writing assessment. We'll talk about each of these sections as we move ahead. The AWA section. There's your first section here. The integrated reasoning section, this is the second section. The quantitative reasoning section is the third one, which is basically what we know as quantitative aptitude when we talk about Indian management exams like CAT, etc. It's literally the same, except the key difference of data sufficiency being an important element of this exam. Data sufficiency actually is one of the critical elements of the GMAT exam. And the last but not the least is the verbal reasoning section, which is basically what in CAT we know as verbal ability and reading comprehension. But there's a key difference here. The question types in verbal ability under the verbal reasoning section are very, very frozen, very, very fixed, and you just have to master those two or three question types which are asked. And you really don't need to spray your gun too much with respect to trying to overall improve your VA. As far as you get the knack to crack those 2 question types, you should do well in the verbal reasoning section. Now, coming back to this, now talking about the format, I mean the total time for the GMAT exam is 187 minutes, and that is split between 30 minutes for AWA, 30 minutes for integrated reasoning, 62 minutes for quantitative reasoning, and 65 minutes for verbal reasoning. This is the breakdown of the structure and of the exam. So it's a 187-minute exam. And these 187 minutes, the order in which you can take the GMAT, there are 3 orders which you're allowed. So this is something unlike the CAT exam or many other standardized tests. This is something which you're allowed to actually choose. So it doesn't make much difference in the sense ultimately you'll have to perform well at all the sections. But maybe in some cases, some of you might want to get rid of the second structure. The second format is where you take the verbal first, then the quantitative, then the integrated reasoning and the AWA. In the third one, it's QA first, quantitative first, and verbal next, and integrated reasoning and AWA next. So you can actually choose based on what your comfort level is. Some people choose the third one because they're good at quants. So they want to have a good positive experience in the first section before they go into what they're not so good at. There could be the same reason for doing this. If your verbal is good and your quant is bad, alternately you might want to get your bad section out of the way first before you go to your strengths, etc. But I mean, the way the structure of the exam is, unless you do well both these sections. So the key of the GMAT is basically the verbal and quantitative. So unless you build your skills on both these sections, you will not be able to score a decent score in this test. So and it's got a very scientific way. I mean, I'm quite sure you must have heard that the GMAT is an adaptive test. So what does an adaptive test mean? It's a computer-based adaptive test. So what does an adaptive test mean? Adaptive test means that the questions that you get, you and I might be giving the exam at the same time, but the questions we get will be different from each other. And what questions you get in the exam will depend essentially on whether you're going right or wrong with the questions you have kind of solved. So a very important aspect of understanding the GMAT exam is to understand the scoring structure. So as I mentioned, the scoring structure of the GMAT exam is such that you have to kind of essentially the quantitative and the verbal, these two sections are what defines your GMAT score. So whether you get a 730 or a 760 or a 780 or a 680, this is the GMAT score that everybody talks about. And that comes basically from the quantitative and the verbal sections. The IR section and the AWA section, these two sections, on the other hand, they are graded sections. So integrated reasoning is graded from 1 to 8. And AWA section is graded from 0 to 6. So a GMAT score report has a GMAT score, IR score, IR band, a GMAT score. It has a GMAT score, an IR band, and AWA band. So once you take the GMAT, these three things will get reported. A lot of colleges want you to, I mean, in terms of colleges which of these scores colleges look at. A lot of the colleges look only at this score. So there's a large multitude of colleges which will not majority, but large multitude of colleges and universities which will look only at this score. But some universities also want both these scores along with that to evaluate what your this thing is. And one of the things that you need to understand with GMAT is that when you're preparing for the GMAT is a very settled exam. It is not something that keeps changing every year on year. The number of questions change kar jayenge, or kis chapter se kis tarah question type aa jayenge. वो जैसे if you talk about the parallel exam, the Indian parallel exam for the GMAT is the CAT, and CAT में one of the problems in the CAT for students while preparing is that everything is fluid. You don't know how many questions will come in which section. A lot of times they keep changing the question types all the time. Although one of the things that if you see the CAT pattern, the way it's been moving for the last 20-25 years, it is an accepted fact that the CAT is moving closer and closer to the GMAT exam. So if you see, one of the things that the CAT has done in the last 3-4 years, from 2017 onwards in verbal ability section, it has brought it down to 3 question types which are asked all the time. So they have defined 3 question types: summary and parajumble and odd man out. They have defined 3 question types that are always asked, which is very similar to GMAT, where in verbal you only get 2 question types. And that's been the pattern for the last, 15, 20, 25 years. They don't experiment too much with the question types. So that way it is very frozen. It's very settled. So when you are preparing for the GMAT, you're not you're not trying to fight against an exam which is shifting. So you got a very fixed target, and the process essentially. I mean, as we move ahead, before I go to the process, what happens is okay. Let me just first go into the two sections. Let's focus on the two sections to start with. Welcome Pulkrit into the class now. So the two big sections are quantitative reasoning, which is basically mathematics, and GMAT. The MBA.com website tells you that this is there are two subparts to this. One is data sufficiency, sub question types actually. One is data sufficiency and the other is problem solving. So in GMAT, in quants, your preparation on quants and essentially process for preparation of data sufficiency is basically rooted through problem solving. So your first focus in quantitative reasoning preparation is basically to get your basics, specifically if your basics are not in place. It's important to get your basics into the picture, or get your basics sorted. That's the first and foremost objective. And essentially, the chapters that you would come across are approximately that you need to study when you're talking about GMAT preparation are the same 18 to 20 chapters that you study when you're preparing for CAT in terms of the kind of questions you will get and the chapters from which questions will come. So broadly, the broad areas are number systems, progressions. This is one block of two chapters that you study. Then you study arithmetic. Then you study arithmetic. Then you study arithmetic, all the chapters of arithmetic, which include averages, alligation, percentage, ratio proportion, time and work, time speed distance, interest, profit and loss. Around 8 chapters of arithmetic is what you have to study here for the arithmetic part. And then you also have geometry and mensuration, and a little bit of coordinate geometry. That's the third big area that you prepare for when you prepare for the GMAT. And then you've got the fourth area which you prepare for in quantitative reasoning are the chapters of functions, inequalities, logs, and equations. This is the algebra part, which is also very prominent in GMAT. You'll get a lot of questions on this, on algebra in your QR section, quantitative reasoning section. And the last, not the least, are the two chapters of permutation, combination, and probability. And these two chapters, and of course, set theory. So these are chapters that you have to study and do well at if you are talking about building your skill level at the GMAT: permutation, combination, probability, and set theory. So these are three chapters that you then have, and these chapters are also very prominently asked in the exam. So you'll have a lot of questions from this. Now, one of the key differences in the GMAT with respect to a lot of other aptitude exams, I'm not just talking about the CAT when I say that. One of the key differences in the GMAT is in the GMAT, you're not allowed to skip questions. So if a question comes in front of you, you have to answer it. You can't, there's no skip button. You have to have a answer to the question, and your answer can either go right or wrong. So in that way, it's a non-unforgiving exam. In an exam like CAT, or an exam where you're allowed to skip questions, most exams otherwise, they allow you to skip questions. So what makes the GMAT difficult is basically this factor, that if a question has come in front of you, if there's a question which has come in front of you, you cannot skip it. So you either know the question or you don't know the question. And when the problem that happens is because the test is adaptive, suppose you don't study 2 chapters well, you've not done two chapters well, and your test is going well. The way, what does adaptive mean first by that example, by that meaning? So what the GMAT does is it rates every question in terms of the score band. It expects a student from which score band should be able to solve that question. Every question in the GMAT that comes in front of you, is rated by the testing agency and by the software in terms of what score level student would be able to solve that question. And hence questions are rated in the 500 to 600 range. Questions are rated in the 600 to 700 range. And then questions are rated in the 700 to 800 range. And the way the score goes, I'll show you a sample scoring chart of how the questions of how the test goes. So what happens is your first question for everybody is a question from this band. And if you solve it correctly, if you solve it wrongly, you'll continue. The test assesses that this guy is not very good at this section, and it'll continue giving you scores from the lowest band, questions from the lowest band. And according to whether you keep solving this correctly or not, it estimates the band. And essentially what happens when you talk about a 780 score or a 760 score, that score is a function of what band you get in quants and what band you get in reasoning. So what do I mean by that? Let me just share that with you. So there's something called the GMAT scoring chart. And that's something that you need to understand if you want to appreciate this exam and what it does to you. Because the biggest myth about the quant section in GMAT is that quant is easier. I mean, I've heard people from various colleges across the country, and I don't know where this myth starts from. Because if you actually look at the 700, 800 questions, even for somebody like me who's cracked the CAT 21 times with 99.9 plus percentile every time, somebody like me with very high quant skills, obviously, I write books for quants after all. There are questions which actually confound my mind and force me to pick up pen and paper, which a lot of times I don't need to do when I'm solving the CAT question. So the first myth you need to break in your mind is that the quant is easy. If you want a high band, you want a high score, you will, I mean, the way the scoring goes is that as you start getting questions right, your 500 to 600, if you get it right, the test will adjust itself. It'll start asking you 600 to 700 questions. You get a couple of them right, then the test is finding out. And the quants band is basically the highest band is 51 in quants. And the test is is finding out essentially. And the band for quants goes from 30 to 51. So the test is trying to see which band of scoring, which level of scoring are you hitting into. So as you keep getting questions right, and then it starts testing you 700 to 800, it starts pushing your score towards the 51 band. So one of the problems in GMAT quants, first of all, is if you have not studied a couple of chapters and you do a lot of work and you have solved a lot of questions correctly, and suddenly you're reaching high scores, high band scores, and then there's a question which comes from a chapter which you have not done, and you don't have an option to skip it. So you have to solve it, and you'll solve it wrongly, obviously. The chances of getting an answer correct in GMAT is very low if you are just marking it for the sake of marking it. Or hoga kya ki agar tum kisi question ko just mark kar rahe ho for the sake of marking it, what will happen is there are 5 options. So the chances of you getting an answer by tukka is very, very low. So the moment you start making mistakes, the test readjusts your level. And then it waits for you to get a few questions right again before it starts pushing you up again. So in that way, it's very scientific because it's testing your knowledge. It's not giving you any easy routes out of this thing. And if you actually get to the 700, 800 questions and you solve a significant number of them correctly, your band automatically adjusts itself to the higher ones. So selective studying and studying some chapters less well or less to less efficiency level or less knowledge level is something which is a no in this exam completely. So let me just change my my slide, my screen share here, and I just wanted to show you first the GMAT score chart. So this is the GMAT score chart. So as you see, this is how the scoring happens in GMAT. So what happens in GMAT, if you can see here, the verbal section starts from a band of 25. If you see here, the verbal section starts from a band of 25 and the quant section starts from a band of 30. So if you have got if you end up with a 25 on the verbal and a 30 on the quants, you get a GMAT score of 480. And as you push your verbal score from low, verbal up to 30 is considered to be low because it's at the 58th percentile in terms of the global average of how many people score above this or get a better score. So 30 is considered to be low, and 31 to 38 is considered to be medium, and 39 to 51 is considered to be high in the GMAT. So as you can see in this slide, as you start pushing towards the right, let's say you remain stuck on 30 in quants and you hit a 51 in verbal. The GMAT score awards you with a 670. And let's say from 25 here and 30 there, you shift to a 35 here and a 37 here, let's say. So 35 here and a 37 there gives you a 600 score. Right. So the idea is why you need to do well in both the sections is because the big scores that you're aiming for, they're all down at the right bottom of this table. They're all here. And they start with the minimum score of 40. I mean, if your score target is, let's say 730, 740, which it should be, or let's say 750 plus. If your score target is 750 plus, you have to be here. Which means your verbal has to be above 46 and your quants has to be above 46. If both are above 46, you get to 750. And in 800 happens at this level. The full score, the maximum score in GMAT happens at 50-51 in verbal and 50-51 in quants. When you have those bands. And of course, 99 percentile, if you're hitting the 99 percentile band, you get to this point. Right. So the problem with the GMAT is, as I said, if you are trying to hit the lower ones, if you are in this score range, you will experience a very easy paper. The quants paper will seem very easy. And then you will come back and say that quants are bahut aasan hai, cat level ka quants hai nahi isme. But if you are hitting this number, if you want to hit this number, then the questions that you're going to face towards the end of the exam and from the middle of the exam, every question is going to force you to actually think through multiple rounds of thinking in your head before you get to the answers of those. And it is actually close to level of difficulty 3 questions that you prepare for the CAT. So my first advice and big advice coming from this understanding is that please don't make the mistake of thinking that quants is going to be easy. If you're aiming for a low score, if you're aiming for a 700, for instance, if you're aiming for a 700 and you've got weak quants and strong verbal, let's see what it requires. Aiming for a 700, weak quant, strong verbal. So 700, if you see, happens around here. This green band is the 700 band. So weak quant, strong verbal, you can say, let's say, hit a 41 band or a 41 band, which is start of medium. So if you're at 41 band in quants, you need a 45 band in verbal to get there, to get this thing. Now I'll augment this with a scoring chart in some mock tests that one of my students took, and I'll just show you how the scoring goes inside an exam. So this is a mock test which a student took. And I'm just going to show you 2 pictures now of how the students scores went. Before I go there, I'll come back to a discussion of the verbal section first. So verbal section, 31 minutes, 31 questions, 62 minutes is the quant section. And when you talk about the verbal section is 36 questions, 65 minutes. And the key, there are three, as I said, there are only 3 question types in verbal. One is reading comprehension. Second is critical reasoning. Now, critical reasoning has around 8-10 sub-question types: strengthening the argument, weakening the argument, boldface reasoning, boldface critical reasoning. Then you've got some conclusion to the passage, inference from the passage, etc. And then you've got weakening, strengthening. Apart from strengthening arguments, weakening arguments, you also have strengthening evidence, weakening evidence. Which are the following, if true, will weaken the claim of the sentence of this thing. And essentially, when you talk about critical reasoning, it's all about analysis of arguments. It's always some argument given to you, and based on that argument, you have to talk about answering questions like that. Which of the following will lend more credibility to the argument? Which of the following will weaken the argument, etc. And sentence correction is essentially grammar, but it is not solved through grammar rules. It is basically how aware you are of language. It's not about reading the Ren Martin and creating the framework of all the grammatical laws in your head. Sentence correction, GMAT, is basically, it's not just grammar, it's also about the most concise and the most clear way of speaking something. So what happens in sentence correction is that the original sentence conveys an idea. So you have to understand that idea. And then grammatically and structurally, you have to see which of the 5 options convey the same idea in a most concise and most clear fashion. So if there are 2 sentences that convey the same idea, this and this, let's say option B and C, are 2 sentences which convey the same idea, and both are grammatically correct, then the GMAT expects you to take option C because it's more concise. Verbosity is not something that GMAT likes. The sentence correction head likes. So this is not out and out a grammar test. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking about this as a grammar test. It is not out and out a grammar test. There are certain key, what can you say? There are certain key traps that the GMAT has, which makes people pick up the wrong option. And once you understand those traps, you should be able to improve or significantly take up your sentence correction accuracy level. And again, like in quants, in verbal reasoning also, once a question comes in front of you on screen, before you head to the next question, you have to answer it. You cannot skip. The skip option is simply not there. So you are forced to go head to head against the question, and you're forced to show the question setter or the exam software, do you have the capability of solving it or not? And then it adapts based on whether you got the question right or wrong. It adapts to your score to a lower or a higher level. So this will be clear to you from a couple of screenshots that I've taken from the score report of a student of mine. Now, this student of mine was first scoring in his initial test. He was scoring a score of around 650, 660 when he took the first couple of mocks that he took, and his score raised over a period of a month's time. As I consulted him, it started moving to 750 to 780. So I'll just show you. I ended up with the 760 on the GMAT. So I'll just show you the what can be described as the ball by ball structure of how his sections went and how a 660 score got created. So you can see these two sheets that I've shared here, these 2 screenshots that I've shared here. And both these screenshots are essentially this. The one on the left is basically the one on this side, on the left side, is basically one which is on verbal, and the one on the right is the quants this thing. So you see the first question was a sentence correction question, and this question belonged to the 600-700 range, and the student got it right. He got it correct. So his estimated score at that point was 38. His estimated score was 38. So the GMAT exam, the software analyzed this guy is going on the right track. He knows this level, and immediately raised the question band to 700 to 800. So and continued with sentence correction. He got this correct. The band went to 45. I think वो जो screenshot मैंने share किया था 51 band नहीं होता verbal में 45 is the highest band. So वो screenshot में थोड़ा error था. The one you can actually check the GMAT score chart. So he started getting 700, 800 correct. So he started hitting a band of 45, which is the highest band possible. And he went and got the next 7-8 questions correct at one shot continuously. He kept getting questions correct till question 9, and he's got 9 questions correct. He's at the highest band at this point of the score of in terms of scoring in the verbal section. And then he gets a 700, 800 question wrong. And when he gets that, and this is an RC question, he gets that, his band is immediately dropped down to 38. So the test is telling him that you're not doing this well. So immediately the test adjusts the question level. It goes down to 600 to 700. And then tests him again at 700 to 800, gets this right, goes back to 44. Then again gives him a 600, 700, goes back, he gets it right, he starts getting things right. So his band is again at 45 right through here. He's getting everything right, and his band is still at 45. And and the test is now again back to 700, 800 for him. So, and one of the things that you need to understand is that the only thing that matters is the last one. That is the number that will take at the end. This is what your score band is, not what you got here. At the middle of the test, you're hitting 45s. It doesn't matter what they are going to look at is the last one. So how did he end up at 39 in 35, in spite of having such a great start to the test? So he's continuing to be at 45 till here. Then he gets the 700, 800 wrong, and the band is immediately adjusted to 40. And please remember, GMAT is 36 questions. The verbal section is 36 questions, 65 minutes. He's down to 40. He gets but because he's got so many 700, 800s correct at the same time, he's got so many 700, 800s correct at the same time. The question level does not drop. He's getting a 700, 800 again here. So by this time, the GMAT exam has the adaptive nature of the GMAT exam has seen that this guy is mostly getting 700, 800s correct. So it tests him again. He gets it right. He goes to 42, and then he gets the next question wrong. He drops down to 39, and the band drops to 600, 700, goes to a lower difficulty level question. And then he starts getting it right, and he's heading back to 44. Please remember, the fight is, at 47 minutes, 55 minutes into the exam, he is still at 44. The fight is what will happen at the end of 65 minutes. That is the only score that counts. That is the only band that counts. So then again, now this person is under time pressure, because one of the things that the GMAT does, so if you see how his score drops down to 35 at the end of this paper, how the score drops down to 35 at the end of this paper, is that he finished on question 33. Question 32, he finishes at 64.53. Last 7 seconds, he's not able to attempt question 33. When you don't attempt a question, the GMAT assumes that it has gone wrong for you. And going further, you did not attempt, this student does not attempt 34, 35, 36. So the GMAT exam assumes that you got 34, 35, 36 wrong. So it has assumed 32, this guy got incorrect. So he's still at a band of 40 at this point. But the real fight has started happening here, because he's out of time. And he's still got 6 questions left here. So this is one of the features of the GMAT, that you actually need to be managing your time right. So there's a time at which you have to be able to finish off. So if you see this guy, he is starting to lose his timeline here. Question 9, he's at 19 minutes, still around 2 minutes. And 36 minutes, 65 questions means you need to be able to do a question around 1 minute 50 seconds. So he's around 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes behind here. But if you look at by question 15, he should be here he should have been in question 15 at around 27 minutes. So it's not just this pattern that is getting it, because you're penalized very heavily here. You're penalized very heavily here. He got the 30-second wrong. He tried it in 25 seconds, got it wrong. And 33, 34, 35, 36, 33, he didn't attempt. He didn't have the time to attempt to mark. So it's considered to be wrong. 34, 35, 36, he's not reached, considered to be all wrong. So he's ended up with 5 wrong questions at the end here, 5 consecutive wrong questions at the end. And what is heading to at least a 40 has ended up with a 35 band-wise. Now let's see what happened in the quant section here. Let's see. So when you're building your GMAT prep process, you have to build the ability to get things correct, but you also have to be able to build to create ability to get them right in a certain time frame, right? So what happened here? What happened next in the quant section? Let's have a look. It's on this side. So quant section में अगर देखो, he started off well. The start off is pretty good. Question starts with a 500, 600 question. He gets it right. Estimate score 47. 700, 800, he's hitting the 51 band, the highest band possible. He's continuing getting questions right. But if you see at this point, he's already in time trouble. 14 minutes may should be, I mean, the formula or the situation for the quant section is very simple. 31 minutes, 62 questions. Sorry, 62 minutes, 31 questions. It's a no-brainer. You have to be 2 minutes per question. So the target cumulative time is essentially built around 2 minutes per question. So what he should have reached at, if you see here, what he should have reached here at 50 minutes, he's reaching at 60 minutes, and that's the end of the paper for him. So, but anyway, let's come back to what happened inside the exam for this chap. So he's getting everything correct one by one after the other, and then the 8th question goes wrong. He's on the 700, 800 band. The GMAT drops his score, but does not estimate him to be losing out much, because he's got 6, 7, 7 questions correctly at the same time, one after the other. So then it takes him to data sufficiency and continues with 700, 800 questions. He's back on the 51 band by getting 2, 3 questions correct. This thing, one after the other. Loses a question, back to the 48 band, gets the next question correct, back to 50, loses the next question, back to 48, gets the next 3 questions correct, gets back to 51, gets back to 51. Please remember, the score is, the band is the last one, what he gets at the end of the exam, at the end of 60 minutes. So he's back on 51 with the logic, or with the caveat that any questions that you did not attempt will be considered to be wrong for you. So that's at 21, 22, 2 questions wrong, he's back to 48, and 23, 24, 2 questions right, he's back to 49, and then his time is up. And he's missed out on questions 25 to 31. He's not solved them because his time is up. If you see individual questions, 4 minutes, 43 seconds, 4 minutes, 5 seconds. This is what has hurt him. 3 minutes, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 59 seconds. All these getting it right, but the timeline is the problem. So it is, that's what I said. It's not just that you are good at the questions, you know how to solve them. It is also about time. Are you able to do it under the structure? And if you're hoping to get a good score, you can't have a system where if somebody might say, but if I take an approach that I'll get a few questions wrong to start with, and उसके बाद easy questions मेरे को बहुत सारे मिलेंगे, तो मैं जल्दी करूंगा तो मेरा timeline ठीक हो जाएगा. तो वो that will not this thing, because once you get a few 500, 600 wrong, the exam will never take you to 700 in terms of the questions, and then you will feel that अच्छा GMAT का तो कौन आसान है. That's what people come back saying. That's where the myth comes from. But if you look at the 700, 800 questions of GMAT, they are as analytical, as structured, as difficult as an LD3 question for CAT. As simple as that. And especially sometimes the data sufficiency questions are so twisted that even really good students will make errors in the thinking, and parallelly, it's also, you're not in an unlimited time situation. You are in a 2 minutes per question situation. And if you look at why I say that the GMAT quants is, in fact, slightly, in fact, not just slightly, but actually more difficult than the CAT quants, is because, and that's the myth that people keep coming back to, I've had people come to me saying that I'm not taking the CAT because quants is very tough in that, or GMAT de dunga, GMAT mein quants aasan hai. So that's absolutely stupid argument, because CAT mein kya hai? You want to get 99 percentile in quants, in CAT, or 22 questions you solve 16, and just coolly leave the 6 questions that you don't know and that you think are too long, etc. Just solve 16 questions correct, and you are done. You're getting a 99 percentile in quants. It's as simple as that. GMAT mein, this guy has got what? 7 questions correct, 10, 12 questions correct, 13, 14, 17 questions correct, 19 questions correct already. In CAT, he would have got a 99 percentile at this. In GMAT, he's ending up with a 45. He's at the end, when he misses question 25 and has left out question 25 to 31, he is being downgraded from a 49 to a 45. Sometimes the downgrading might be even more than that. So 45 here, the net score based on the chart, 45 in quants, 35 in verbal, and based on that, the intersection of this ended up at 660 for him. Now let me show you the same student and him getting a 780. And let's see the story of how a 780 happened. Let me just open those screenshots and I'll share that with you. Just give me a second. I have his score sheets with me. Just see the story of a 780. I'm just sharing this with you in a minute. One sec. I don't seem to have this. With me. Okay, what has happened is he's mailed me both these in the 780 also. He's mailed me the same score sheet. Let me just call him and check whether he can send it to me immediately. Let me give me a minute. I'll just be back.